Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Marty. If you're new here, welcome. Today I'm here to talk about my first impression of Chicago. For those of you not super familiar with me, I moved this summer from Seattle to Chicago. It was a cross-country move and I've been in Chicago for about 5 months now. So it's a solid amount of time and I'm starting to get a good understanding of Chicago. And I thought I would share with you some of my first impression of Chicago as a newbie. I lived in Seattle for over 10 years, so I'm gonna be comparing a lot of my experience in Chicago to my experience in Seattle. I grew up in Hong Kong, and so that's another completely different area. What else should I share? I'm 25 years old, and I work at a tech company as a program manager. That's just a little information about myself, so you know what my perspective is like. So let's get right to it. First, I want to talk about is the Chicago weather. Chicago weather, it's very interesting in my opinion. To me, it feels like it's less consistent and it changes quickly. For example, right now this week, we are forecasted to have like some weathers in the 50s and maybe even hit 60, which is really unusual in Chicago from what I'm hearing. But earlier in the weekend, we actually had days that were in the 20s. So it really changes from day to day. And in the summer, there were days where it's beautiful in the morning and in the afternoon we'll get like a storm. I've never really experienced weather like this, but I actually kind of like it because just because the forecast is saying that it might rain the next day, it probably won't be raining the entire day and you might still have some dry weather in the morning or so. I appreciate that coming from Seattle because Seattle, other than the summer, it's always rainy. Having some variation in weather is quite nice. In the summer, it was really humid. That's something I had to get used to because Seattle is relatively dry in comparison. I would say we're not as humid as places like New Orleans or Florida, but overall in the summer here is more humid than I'm used to. That's kind of my first impression of Chicago's weather. Okay, next I want to talk about restaurant. For those of you who know me, I love restaurants. I love eating out. I probably eat out more than I should, but Chicago has a really strong restaurant scene. I've been really impressed so far. It's not just the quality of the restaurants, but also there is a really diverse scene to the restaurants here. It ranges from like nice restaurants to quick bites to casual eating. Really, there are so many nice restaurants to eat in Chicago and I'm here for it. Now that we talk a little bit about the restaurant, I also noticed that eating out here is a little bit cheaper than in Seattle. So naturally, the next call I have for my first impression in Chicago is the cost of living. Like I have just mentioned, eating out in Chicago is a little bit cheaper than Seattle. I'm not saying it's by a ton, but I would say on average, maybe a dish or drink is usually like $1 or $2 cheaper. So it's not super significant. It's still expensive to eat out. Obviously, it's a big city. Coming from the West Coast in Seattle, I'm just realizing how overpriced the West Coast is. In terms of renting, you know, I'm not a leasing professional, but I will say that for the quality of my apartment here in Chicago, this unit, if I were to copy and paste this from Chicago to Seattle, it'd be costing probably a lot more. I think if you're not picky and you're looking for a studio in an older building in Chicago, it's gonna be easy to find more affordable options in Chicago. I have not noticed a ton of difference when it comes to grocery shopping or maybe even getting coffee, but my two biggest call out when it comes to cost of living would be rent and restaurant and eating out, and both of these areas are a little bit cheaper than Seattle. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the people. So far, I find that people here in Chicago are really friendly and they like to chit chat a little bit more. Now, I'm not saying they're going out of the way to get to know you. You kind of still have to be approachable and like make people feel comfortable to have conversation with you. But overall, like in elevators or just at restaurant while I'm waiting in the line, it's not uncommon for me to find people chit-chatting or asking me questions. I like that a lot about Chicago just because it is a big city and a lot of people think, you know, people in big city are usually more uptight. I'm finding it very easy for me to make friends so far. I noticed there are a lot of transplant from other nearby states in the Midwest, but you know, like me, I am not even from the Midwest. There are definitely other people who are from Europe, from East Coast, from West Coast. People come here from all over the place. So Chicago is a very decent melting pot. And if that's what you're looking for, I think Chicago is a great place for that. Alright, next I want to talk about how flat Chicago is. Coming from Seattle, the Pacific Northwest, it's really hilly and Chicago is completely flat. When I look west of the downtown, I can see the end of it emerging to the sky and that is freaky to me. But that makes it actually a quite entertaining sunset because the color in the sky is just so beautiful with layers of colors you can see from like red and orange all the way to purple and dark blue. Something about it makes it very magical. But more importantly, I think that makes Chicago super walkable. Maybe not so much in the next couple months when it gets really cold in here. I don't have that experience yet, but so far my first 5 months, I've been able to walk around most of Chicago easily. And next, kind of attached to this is gonna be transportation. Transportation in Chicago is also really impressive. I can't really compare it to the subway system I've experienced in Hong Kong or Tokyo, where, I think Asian cities just have a much bigger density in population and they just have a lot more infrastructure and investment into public transportation. But so far in Chicago, although it's not the most clean trains I've been on, it's been really convenient. I can get to most of the city easily. And for places that I can't get to by train, there's usually a bus, or if you want the convenience, I can always Uber too. It hasn't been very difficult for me to get around in the city without a car, and that is what I wanted. I didn't want to go to a city where having a car is still essential. Next on my list, I think I want to talk a little bit about Lake Michigan. I have been really impressed. Lake Michigan is huge. Even when I'm flying into Chicago and looking out from the plane, I can't really see the end of the lake. Supposedly when I'm seeing the other side of the lake, I should be seeing Michigan. I keep looking at it, I just couldn't because that lake is gigantic. People probably think Midwest is in the middle of the country, doesn't have a lot of access to water, and I think Chicago is really lucky that we are by Lake Michigan. There are definitely days I forget that it's not the ocean, it's just a lake because the lake is that huge. I'm really looking forward to next summer when I'm in Chicago and the weather is warmer, that I can try to go to some of the beaches in Chicago. I think that will be really fun. But so far I've been really impressed by the lake, and I think the lake is really underrated. Okay, another thing I think a lot of people ask about is crime. I think a lot of people associate big cities with high crime rate, which is probably true if you look at the absolute number. I think Chicago is not the safest city in the country, I will say that. But comparing it to Seattle, I have this app called The Citizen. It's basically an app where people can report any police activity or events happening in the city, and if you are near that location, you'll get notification. For those of you who have never used this, I highly recommend it if you're worried about your personal safety. It really gives you an idea of what's happening around the city so that you can be alerted when needed. With that said, I haven't really seen and experienced any shooting, fortunately, or just crimes on the street. So comparing my time in Seattle and my time right now in Chicago, the Citizen app isn't really giving me more notifications. Now, I would say in Seattle, I lived in an area that is pretty young and fun, but also has a lot of homeless people, and there's a lot going on in the neighborhood. So maybe in comparison to that, me living in now South Loop in Chicago, maybe it's not a very fair comparison. I do try to pay more attention to my surroundings here in Chicago, just part of me being new, but part of it being a much busier and bigger city. I am hearing more things about shooting, robbery, or just people pickpocketing. So that's just something that comes with living in a big city, in my opinion. So far, I think I've been pretty lucky, and I don't really find that as a big concern of mine as a first impression. Last but not least, I thought we should end it on a fun note. I think Chicago, it's really festive. It's almost Christmas, and there's so much going on in the city. Lots of ice skating opportunities, big Christmas tree in a lot of touristy places. We have a Christmas market. It's just a really festive place. The only thing missing right now is snow, but to be honest, I know we're gonna get it a lot in January and February. So this summarized my first impression of Chicago. Obviously, I'm not an expert and I've just moved here, but if you have any questions about my experience or anything I didn't cover as my first impression of Chicago, feel free to leave a comment down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I am a newer vlogger. I started making videos on YouTube this year, and I'm gonna continue to vlog about my journey here in Chicago, probably make more videos like this in the future. Next year, I'm also gonna try to travel if COVID is not gonna mess up my plans. So it's gonna be a good time. If you would like to follow along, please hit that big red subscribe button. For now, I'm just gonna end the video here, and thank you so much again for watching. I'll see you in my next one.